And now we talk some temperature extreme event analyzed in previous workshop. And the first event analyzed is 2016 cold surge in January. And this event was analyzed during first workshop in Edinburgh. And shown here in top left is temperature anomalies over East Asia. You can see, for example, over a large area that include, for example, Mongolia and East China, and temperature anomalies is negative, and with some regions and it reaches, for example, -10. And so in terms of temperature record, and the T minimum temperature in Mongolia fell to, for example, record low of -46.8 degree on 23rd January 2016. And on the same day, and the T minimum temperature in Shanghai fell to the -7.5 degree, and the T minimum in Hong Kong was 3.3 degree, and that was the coolest temperature in last 60 years. And the group analyzed the Chinese station observations, and they show the top left is a Pantet averaged T minimum, and Pantet is 24th to 25th in January. And you can see in most stations, and temperature anomalies is negative, and with the temperature anomalies range from -2 to -10. And showing top right are the rank of temperature anomalies. And so some stations shows, for example, record low, and some stations shows, for example, sector record low. And in bottom figures, and it shows a pattern temperature anomalies, and its time series during last, for example, 50 years. And you can see the large interannualability, and although the trend is small, but for example, in terms of temperature anomalies, and 2016 is a record low, and our average pattern minimum temperature is -4 degree. And so use a meta-office attribution systems for both natural and historical simulation for 2016, and group analyze the probability density function for that kind of event. And show here is a probability density function against temperature anomalies, and show you the green line is historical natural simulation, and in red line is historical simulation that include, for example, anthropogenic influence. And so relative to natural simulation, and you can see, for example, human influence led to a temperature shift to the right, indicate human influence increase the temperature. And for 2016 kind of event, and that blue line shows the threshold, and you can see, for example, in natural world, and the probability for this kind of event is 6.7%, but in historical simulation, and this kind of probability reduced, and it's 2.3%. And showing the right is another way to look at, for example, probability of this kind of event. And show here is the retained period against temperature anomalies, and deadline the threshold for 2016 event. And you can see, for example, in terms of retained period, and for this kind of event, it's happened, for example, 1 in 15 years in natural world, but in the historical simulations, which include both natural forcing and anthropogenic forcing, and become for 1 in 43 years. And so both this probability density function and the return period indicate human influence reduce the probability of this kind of event by the 2/3. And the second event is about July 2017 Central China heat wave. And this is also, for example, is a patented event. And show here is a temperature anomalies that T maximum temperature averaged over, for example, 24th to 25th, that patented temperature anomalies. And so in in Central East China, and the temperature anomaly over that painted relative climatology and is above average, and in most stations, and the temperature anomaly is above 2 degrees. And showing the bottom left is the ranking of temperature anomalies, and the red indicator is the first hottest painted. And in the bottom right, it shows a painted average temperature time series during the last 60 years. And you can see in terms of average painted temperature and the large interannual variability, and 2017 shows a record high with average painted temperature anomalies above the climatology by 2.3 degrees. And so use a Met Office historical and natural simulation for July 2017, and the group analyzed the probability density function that shows the left-hand side, and once again, the green line shows the PDF for the natural simulation, and the red line shows the PDF for historical simulation. And you can see relative to natural simulation, historical simulation that include, for example, anthropogenic forcing led to temperature shift to the right, indicate anthropogenic forcing warming the temperature. And this dashed line shows the threshold for the 2017 heat wave. And you can see, for example, for the probability in natural simulation, and this kind of event happened, for example, about 2%, but with include anthropogenic forcing, and this becomes for example, 20%. And so the risk ratio increased about 10-fold. And show right is the return period against, for example, the temperature anomalies, and this dashed line shows the threshold. And so in natural simulations, and this kind of event is very rare, and it's happened, for example, once in every, for example, 50 years, but in historical simulation or real world, and it becomes, for example, one in about 5-year event. And so, and the two previous examples is about a short duration of both cold event and hot event. And the third event analyzed is a persistent North China not heat wave that happened in 2018. And show here is a 30-day running maximum temperature anomalies relative to climatology. And you can see, for example, for 30-day running average, and in most stations over Northeast China, and is positive, and the positive temperature anomalies range from 2 degrees to about, for example, 33.5 degrees. And associated with this temperature anomalies, and there's also large scale circulation anomalies, and show here is G potential height anomalies that's in black line, and also the color line shows, for example, specific humidity. And so associated with this warming event, and the enormous anticyclonic circulation over the region, and also increase specific humidity. And showing the bottom left is a time series of 30-day running mean of T maximum. And you can see, for example, during the last 50 years, and there's an increased trend of that temperature anomalies, and also for the 2018 event, it shows a record high with 30-day running mean temperature anomalies is above, for example, 2 degrees relative to climatology. And note this event is a very long-lasting event. Is for example, 30-day running event. And show here are the group first analyzed, for example, what the historical simulation look like does the model, for example, capture, for example, time evolution of this kind of event, and show black line is observations from 60 to 2013, and the red line is the example average over that period for model simulation, and this red gray areas is uncertainty from model simulation. And you can see, for example, in terms of model simulation and model general captures, for example, time evolutions of temperature evolution during that period. And in the top right, and it shows a PDF in model historic simulation against observations, and two PDF is very similar and indicate model, for example, can capture, for example, temperature anomalies during historic period. And in the bottom left, and it shows a probability density function against temperature anomalies, and blue in the historical natural simulation, and red in real-world simulations. And you can see, for example, PDF shift to the right indicate, for example, human influence led to the PDF shift to the warm side. And so this line is the 2080 threshold. And you can see, for example, in natural simulations, and for event exceeding the 2018 event, it's very rare, but it's quite common, for example, in natural simulations. And so in terms of risk ratio, and the risk ratio is about 60 time, is 60-fold. And this bottom right shows retain period against the temperature anomalies, and blue line is natural simulation. And you can see, for example, it's a very rare event in natural simulation. And however, with the influence of human influence, and it becomes, for example, one in about 80-year event, one in about 60-year event.